Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to make some comments on this, and I've got three areas of interest. I've got multiple areas of interest, but three areas that I'd like to make comment on. And I want to open on reflecting on the contribution by my fellow member for Bass, Lara Alexander. I think, as was noted at the time in the chamber, her contribution clearly came from a place of passion and deep, genuine care for many Tasmanians, and in particular the Tasmanians that she served in previous roles and has had the quiet moments to sit down with in our electorate. And I think it's really refreshing that someone stands and speaks passionately and delivers from the heart their genuine sort of reflection on what's before us. So I just wanted to put that on record. However, we've worked together with a few constituents and we come together and agree on a few things, but I do have a different approach, I suppose, or come to some of these concerns from a different position. And I note that another member of this place reflected on the now Minister and said that, you know, they expect that he has genuine intention with what he's hoping to achieve here. But we've had a bit of a funny week and we've had a funny day today, and we've been talking about ministerial standards and expectations and quality of service and care and respect for our community. And it seems to me that when you try and fix something by picking it up and moving it somewhere else and then just hoping that it's going to be better, there actually needs to be moments where we reflect and are critical about the work that we're actually already delivering. We have in the contributions that have been made so far, words like we need to be nimble, we need to be efficient, we need to be responsive, the system doesn't currently work, our organisations need to be solid and they need to be healthy, we need to make sure that we work together. And from my mind, a bit like the contribution that I made this morning, these things should all be possible from within governments and government departments and from within us as a parliament and from within government in the way that we do support our community. And that if those things aren't true now, then we need to ask the question, why not? Not just say, oh, okay, we'll try and fix it by putting it here and maybe they'll do better. Maybe they'll have a good culture. Maybe they'll have good systems. Maybe they'll have good governance. But they should be already the things that we deliver. The gigantic scale of the teams within the departments that are tasked with the delivery, who for so many within that system go to work day on day to deliver, you know, incredible, overwhelming workload, but the system should be set up to already deliver that. So I'm not a big believer in duplicating broken systems by trusting or hoping that a new system will magically fix it. So that was sort of my first contribution. It feels a little bit like if I put it over there in a box and make them responsible for it, I'm not responsible for it anymore. So one, I might not be responsible for the outcomes or the culture or the quality or for the efficiency or for the behaviours, for the outcomes and the deliveries. But also what it feels like is there's a little bit like, well, if we put it over there, it's not on our balance sheet anymore, or we don't have to be financially responsible for it. Maybe also we're a little bit more removed from the tasks that are delivered and the financial results and the responsibility to ensure that there's good work and quality work that's done, because that's their job now. So I want to illustrate that, I suppose, in a couple of reflections. One is in the statement of ministerial expectations, and I want to just go through and make a couple of comments about that and put those on the record. And then I want to bring an electorate example to my concerns about this separation of responsibility and accountability. So just making a couple of statements on a couple of reflections on the statement of ministerial expectation. On page 3, under strategic expectations, the first statement in housing is a fundamental need that supports people to reach their goals. I think there's been a massive missed opportunity to say that housing is a human right. And it's missed the opportunity to define housing as a human right. And I also just want to put on the record that I'm sharing these comments and the comments that have been identified and shared with me through our shadow spokesperson and our team here. On page 4, in the second set of dot points under the introductory comment, in undertaking its functions and purpose, I expect the Homes Tasmania Board to, under the second dot point, it says maximise the supply of affordable housing targeted to those in need. But, with consideration, this should perhaps read that maximise the supply of affordable and social housing to those in need. And that is a recommendation also by Shelter Tas. In the next set of dot points, under give consideration to social, economic and environmental sustainability, under a dot point, sub dot point, it says efficiently manage and maintain its core assets. And I think we have to be really careful about how we refer and categorise things, and perhaps that should read through reducing the maintenance liability and bringing assets up to their current building and environmental standards, because as we've heard by so many today, there are people in our community who are concerned to raise just the basic fundamental of needs of quality. I'm not even going to say quality, but fundamental basic levels of living standards, for fear that there will be some sort of repercussion. So I think that's really important, and a recognition that things are brought up to their basic standards. And then further over in the statement, and this goes to the comment that I was saying before, on page 6, under section 3 still, under 3.4, relationship with service providers and industry, the statement says, I expect that these committees will include representation from relevant sector and organisations, and we just want to note that that has to include Housing Tasmania tenants and those who've got lived experience, and that the board will consider their advice in its decision making. And as I said, we'd heard about how this new entity is supposedly somehow going to operate differently under a different culture and behaviour and set of outcomes than the current system. But then it goes on to say, I expect these committees to meet at least 3 times per calendar year. Now, if you're hoping to be nimble and agile, quarterly meetings of feedback and providing that sort of level of representation is not really going to provide the outcome that's intended. Under section 4, under 4.3, under the heading of in delivering on the overarching expectations, I expect Homes Tasmania to, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th dot point says deliver affordable and secure social housing with effective tenancy management services to achieve positive outcomes for tenants across the social housing system. And we trust that this will be reconsidered to include tenants exiting the expiring NRAS, including NRAS tenants who are ineligible for the PRAS. On page 8, under 4.4, I expect Homes Tasmania to maintain capital structure and debt levels that is consistent with the overall strategic portfolio objectives. It's really important that debt should remain low and only be used for the provision of social and affordable housing, including housing support, homelessness services and crisis accommodation. We've all seen the outcome of exploding debt levels in other areas. Now, they're the comments on the statement of ministerial expectation, but what I want to take this through to is what I can see, and there's lots of risks that have been identified and people have spoken to other things, so I won't repeat that contribution, but I'm really concerned about the separation of accountability and the separation of responsibility. I'm concerned about, that in the current structure, that there's sort of like a poor line of sight across the the ever-extended links between where money starts and money finishes. So, for instance, if the government grants funds to an entity to deliver social housing, and then the entity that's delivering that social housing engages subcontractors, where there's a concern between the entity and the subcontractors and there may be disputes and unresolved, the government now have wiped their hands of that in delivering these social housing outcomes because they've delivered it via a third party. Now, there's already a current concern with that in the system, and to me this separation allows that to be even further lost and further sort of grey in who's actually responsible. I've got a real-time case, Minister, that I've brought to your attention of some tradies, some 7 tradies that have worked on a project in Launceston. They collectively took the contracts because they believed them to be government contracts, and in an environment of really difficult operating circumstances for tradies in terms of supply and payments and all sorts of things, they felt confident that this was a secure engagement. They delivered all their work, their tilers and painters and all sorts of tradies on these social housing properties that were delivered in the northern suburbs, and to this day, months and months and months later, despite repeated requests, they've completed their work to great outcome, and the provider hasn't paid them. They've been paid, and they now have seemingly really difficult pathway to have anyone listen to them and take seriously their concerns for a lack of a payment on what would have been seen to them as a government contract, when governments say, you know, we'll pay our small businesses within a short period of time. We will be sure to ensure that our trades that are working on behalf of Tasmanians to deliver social housing are looked after. And that's not the case in this scenario, to the point where these trades are being put under quite serious duress from the third party if they continue to raise the need to be paid. Now, it concerns me that this entity is being established because the current system doesn't work. That in itself I don't think is good enough, but where it actually further breaks down that direct relationship of accountability, either in social outcomes, emotional community outcomes for people, where it also breaks down that accountability on the financial outcomes for people in our community. So I only had those 3 areas that I want to make a contribution on, but I think it's really important. If something's not right, if it's not serving the needs in our community, if it's not nimble enough, it's not efficient enough, it doesn't have good culture, and it's not delivering the outcomes that our community need in a way that actually serves them, then don't just pick it all up and move it somewhere else and hope for the best. Actually dive in, do the hard work, and correct the systems.
But it's not that Housing Tasmania wasn't delivering. It was on government that wasn't delivering.
That's right, and when things are broken and not working, don't just pack them off to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Do the hard work and address the issues that need addressing.